Of Pop TV's hit comedy series, next.
Well, now we have the amazing cast and creators of Pop Schitt's Creek. So please allow me to introduce co-creator, executive producer, and actor, Mr. Eugene Levy, actor Catherine O'Hara, co-creator, executive producer, and actor Daniel Levy, and actor Annie Murphy. Guys, you have had an amazing Emmy nomination run. And let's just be very clear. Outstanding lead actress in a comedy series nomination for Ms. O'Hara, outstanding lead actor in a comedy series, supporting actor in a comedy series, supporting actress in a comedy series, and among a list of other ones, outstanding comedy series. So much congratulations to you guys for this. We're going to have a long talk today and talk about a lot that's happened with the final season, which just ended up in April. But we want to talk about the whole thing. But before that, we're going to show the first of a couple of clips we have today. And I'm not quite sure how to set this one up, except to say this is a very unique and yet very typical meeting of the roses. Take a look.
Well, I suppose I should let you both know that there's been a slight change of plans. As you've heard, your mother's going back to work, and we'll be heading to California. Now, I've made some calls, and I'll be setting up shop out west for the time being.
Ooh, so it's just David and me going to New York then?
I have something to say.
The wedding's off.
No, the wedding's not. Why would the wedding be off? Patrick found us a house.
Okay, I don't know how we'd be able to afford a house.
No, the house is here. I think we're going to stay.
What? David, are you sure you've given this sentencing adequate deliberation?
I just don't think I'm finished with this place. My business is here. My husband is here. And I'm just not ready to mess that up. Just yet. I'm sorry. I said I would share a place with you.
So, does this mean you'll be coming with us, Alexis?
No. I think it means that I'm going to be flying solo to New York. I've done it before and I can do it again.
You take that ember of independence and you keep it burning, because you, my darling, are destined to be on fire.
Well, I could not be more proud of my family than I am right now. And as much as I'll miss this, being together, at least I can go to sleep knowing we're all going to be okay.
So, when are you leaving?
September 3rd.
That's my wedding day.
And we're tied to the 3rd.
Oh, Moira.
Am I tied to the 3rd?
Of course you're getting married on the 3rd, David. Moira, we can leave first thing the next morning.
Yes, we will, John. It's worth noting that the lie flat seats were only on the evening flight.
Moira.
It's okay.
Unbelievable.
That, in a way, is kind of the roses in a nutshell in many ways. Dan, I wanted to ask you, you're a 4-time nominee this year. You have acting nominations, you have writing nominations, you have directing, you have producing. Before we get into some of this, how do you balance all that?
I first of all, I just find that title to be so absurd and hilarious. I don't know. I mean, to be perfectly honest, I don't really know how it happened or what's going on. Listen, it should not be a burden to juggle that kind of lovely thing. It's been the most pleasant of surprises, I think, for all of us. In terms of the actual workload, it just sort of happens. I mean, I think when you're thrown into a really high pressure situation like that, where you are kind of in charge of so many things, and yet at the same time, it's such a passion project that it never felt like I was in charge. It just felt like, I had answers when people had questions. When you're in it, it doesn't feel quite as complicated as it I guess reads on paper. It just happened. It just kind of, by the end of the season, you realize you've almost done the impossible. And I think, for me, it was so helpful to have a cast and crew that was just the best of the best. It just made everything so much easier and made the entire experience so joyful. And so, yeah, you know, it's not me. It's an incredible team that allowed me to kind of do those jobs as best I could.
And 6 years of exceptional work from that.
Exactly. Now, I wanted to say to ask Eugene, Catherine, and Annie. I've had the honor of talking with you guys before, and we've done these in panels live and virtual before. But I wanted to get a sense: how does it feel for you guys now that Schitt's Creek is all done?
Yeah.
Annie, because she bowed to it, so we must ask Annie first.
What a question. I miss it so much. It's been now over a year since we wrapped, and I kind of got hit with the sad a couple of months ago. Really.
But around the time of the finale?
Yeah, exactly. Just missing those faces that I've grown to love so much, and all that fun that we continuously had on set, and it's left a hole. I'll tell you that.
Catherine, you have to follow up to that.
I'd like to fill that hole for you, Annie, if I could.
Fill that hole, please.
But I have one myself. So help each other. Yeah, it's sad. Yeah, when time came around this year where we would have been shooting, it hits you. You realize, I don't know what to do with myself these few months. But everybody's in the same boat right now. And we were Eugene and Daniel were so smart to finish it off and resolve all of us, last year, because we weren't going to be able to shoot this year. But yeah, it's sad. But the live shows were a great, for me, kind of a weaning me off of everybody, because I miss the people most of all, and I miss you guys. I miss being with you, and when we got to do the live shows, that we got to carry it on, and now they're all canceled for another year, so we'll see. But I hope
they're coming back soonish.
Yeah,
I miss you guys, and the crew, everybody. Yeah.
Eugene, how does it feel for you now? It's all done.
That's exactly it. I mean, it's like it's going through withdrawal. Right now it's missing these people, missing my on-camera family, missing the cast, and it was cast and crew. It was all family going to work every day. It was the greatest way to go to work. You really looked forward to going into work every day because... And
I should point out, if people don't realize this, Eugene and Daniel created the show together. So this is truly a family affair, both on camera and off camera.
And Sarah.
It's yes, that's true. And Sarah. It's Daniel, me, and my daughter, Sarah, Dan's sister, who played Twyla. So that was kind of a strange on-camera experience for me. It was, I always thought it was just the weirdest, the most surreal thing, being on camera acting with both my kids and, kind of watching them, interact in a scene with, the likes of Catherine. It was just something I never quite got over.
No, one of the things that we saw that happen with Schitt's Creek is, this wonderful gem grew and grew and grew and grew. So by the time we got to that final season, you guys were a phenomenon. Were you surprised? Dan, I really want to ask you because, you put so much into the show, and I know we've talked about it before. Were you surprised where things ended up by the end? And how did the popularity change anything for you in terms of the show?
Well, no, not really, because I think the majority of people started watching it very late in the game. So it really kind of cracked open, I suppose, in season 5. That's when, viewers had watched and gotten caught up. So it took quite a long time. And I think by the time you're in the 5th season of your show, the machine is kind of well oiled, and you sort of have a very clear idea of how it all works. So I think the only time that it really felt it kind of affected me in any kind of professional capacity was probably writing the last couple episodes of the last season. I think because up until that point, I didn't find it very helpful to think about fan expectations when we were writing the show, because I think so much of the show is so much of the specificity of the show is because it was really focused, and our incredible team of writers and we would work in isolation, and we would just really focus on what was best for the show. And we shut out a lot of, other people's, a lot of the white noise, because what people were responding to was kind of what we were making in that isolation. So if we were to open it up, if we were to somehow sort of do that tongue-in-cheek thing that I think shows can do, which is like, constantly be aware of your audience and cater to their expectations, it does break that seal of reality a little bit. But I do think that in a series finale, at least for me in doing my research, I always found it really kind of charming when a show gave those little nuggets to the audience that basically, the little winks and the acknowledgments of, we know you've been paying attention, so we're going to give you this little detail that, wrapped up something from season 1. I think that was really fun to play with. So it really wasn't until probably the series finale that we sat down and said, okay, what are the things that we think the fans will want? And then we cross-referenced it with what we think the characters would want. And if they overlapped, great. If they didn't, we would often side on the, on the side of the characters, because that's the story we're telling. But yeah, that's a really long-winded answer to a simple question.
It was a very good answer, and I hope I get an equally long answer from Eugene and from Catherine. You guys have worked together for a long time. SCTV, Best in Show, you're icons of comedy. What do you think that history you guys had helped you bring to Schitt's Creek, and how did it help you guys evolve as actors working together? Eugene?
Well, I think that it ultimately, in our show, for Johnny and Moira being married for so many years, I think the working relationship that Catherine and I have had over a lot of years now created that comfort factor in a marriage in a very effortless kind of way. It was just, it was just there. We have played couples before in other projects, and I think put it all together and you just get very comfortable working together, and that you don't have to work as hard on camera. It's just there. The experience comes through, seeps through. And that to me, I think was a big factor in how the Roses, Johnny and Moira, kind of turned out. What do you think, Catherine?
Yeah, I agree. And I'll add to that I really love and respect Eugene. I mean, he's a great writer and great actor and a good man. And so I knew I was in good hands there. And we just sort of seem to work the same way. We take our comedy very seriously. And we both sort of came up, and Eugene had more experience before Second City Theater than I did. But Second City, I think, really trained us, in the world of collaboration and supporting each other and looking out for each other and raising each other's game. And thankfully, everybody seemed to work that way on this show. So it is comfortable, but it's also more exciting than that.
A bit more.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the marriage of Patrick Brewer and David Rose. We are gathered here today to celebrate the love between two people whose lives were ostensibly brought together by the fated flap of a butterfly wing. It is all but impossible to explain why things happen the way they do. Our lives are like little baby crows, carried upon a curious wind, and all we can wish for our families, for those we love, is that wind will eventually place us on solid ground. And I believe it's done just that for my family here in this little town in the middle of nowhere.
Okay, I think we're good. Okay.
And now I will ask David, Rose, and Patrick Brewer to exchange their vows.
All right. I feel like in some ways there's nothing I should say after that. But I will say this. Among the nominations that you guys personally received and the shows received, you've also received nominations for costume and hair and makeup, many of those departments. And we all know how hard people below the line work in making shows come, often people who don't get the credit they deserve. So, full credit to them.
Yeah.
Following that, I would love to ask Catherine and Daniel and Annie and Eugene too, how the hell did you come up with that look?
Well, I'll briefly say that when Daniel told me they were trying to get the look together to top all of their looks, Moira's look, that I said, hey, maybe something papal, like a mitre or something. But that's all I gave. And then I asked Anya, Soros, our hairdresser, to make me a roll of hair to have between the mitre and my head. And that's all I gave. And then everybody worked. I had no idea how much beautiful work and creativity went into making that actually happen,
And we saw in episode after episode, we saw costumes like that. I mean, Moira's fashion and to a degree Alex's fashion. And I have to say, by the way, I just want to do a throwback to our first clip. I absolutely covet that sweater that David was wearing in our first clip there with the hand. Daniel, I know that you would take a very hands-on approach because you guys didn't have the biggest budget in the world, and yet you had couture in every episode. How did you pull it off?
It became a full-time job. I mean, you have production working for only a small amount of the year, so we were not able to, in that time, buy everything that we needed to buy. So I was shopping basically all year round. I purchased everything from when there was sales season to, designer consignment stores that I would pop into. I had downloaded apps on my phone that had designer consignment apps. And I was shopping all year round because we needed to find those steals. We needed to find those rare pieces of clothing that were so aspirational and yet within our budget. And so I would come to our fittings on those first couple of days of getting back into production with, 5 or 6 suitcases of clothes that I had purchased throughout the year.
Of mostly women's clothes.
Only exclusively women's clothes.
Back and forth with suitcases full of women's clothing.
I would only shop for Alexis and for Moira, and the person that cleans my apartment certainly thought I had a very fun life. Because a lot of those clothes were hanging in my closet, and I only wondered what she was thinking.
When Daniel would show up with these 5 or 6 suitcases full of clothes, what would be your guys' reaction? Because, as I said, the outfits, the aesthetic of Schitt's Creek, the outfits that you guys wore became literally characters unto themselves. How was that for you? Did they help define the characters for you?
Yes. And I think I can speak for Catherine too. The costumes were so crucial because this is me on like a fancy day. And this is how I roll normally. So being able to put on these incredible clothes that I would never in a million years have found or discovered, and then strapping on these heels and then getting done in hair and makeup, it was truly transformative and really kind of put me in the body of Alexis, which is a very different body than the one I usually walk around in.
I want to talk a little bit about, because we just saw a clip there from what was the finale, where we see the wedding between Patrick and David, and a lot happens, and the Roses Johnny and Moira are moving in a way back to their old life, but with some lessons learned from this time in Motel Exile, or Exile on Motel Street, to quote the Stones. Obviously, David and Patrick are going to stay, and Annie is off into the world in an independence that she probably didn't have before. I wanted to know from all of you, and I'll start with you, Eugene, how did your character evolve over the seasons, and how did he get to where he was in the finale?
Well, I don't know entirely of all the characters how much Johnny actually evolved from beginning to end. I think he was kind of steady as she goes throughout, because that was his thing, to help the family get through this horrible situation, and maybe one day we'll find ourselves out of this. So I'm not. I think in terms of being a father, much the way Moira being a mom, as parents, we did learn entirely what family is, and there was an emotional, I wouldn't call it a surge, but as the seasons went on, the idea of knowing, what a good dad is, for Johnny, I think kind of, became apparent, because before, being a good parent was sending your kids to the best schools and, getting the best nannies and, making sure your plane is safe when you're, flying all over the world. And I mean, that's what it was. But the idea of being there for your kids is something that came into play toward the end. So as a dad, I think there was a transformation for Johnny, but I think his keeping it cool for all those years in Schitt's Creek kind of, paid off for everybody.
Catherine, how did Moira change if she did?
Well, I think Moira never got up without thinking about when they might get out. But didn't badger Johnny every day about it, but it was on her mind. And I think it's a case of be careful what you wish for, because, she, with no actual agenda, she, fell for everybody in this town, almost everyone. But as Eugene said, what really happened for us unconsciously was we became parents, and Moira actually became a mother, and that was the best, I think, for Moira, but also so fun to play. All those scenes with Annie and Daniel, becoming a mother and having these great parent children scenes, that was just lovely to watch them grow and become the beautiful people they became. That was great. Yeah.
Annie, for you, I mean, Alex, in some ways, Alex's evolution was profound. For you as an actor, how was that, and how do you feel about where she ended up in the finale?
I'm going to be really lame and say that I'm very proud of her as a character.
There's nothing lame about that. That's awesome.
It always makes me cringe when actors say that, but now I'm like, I get it. I think Alexis, when we first met her on paper, was such a difficult handful of a person. And she was very selfish and very dependent on men and on money. And then where we leave her in season 6, she's this independent, more further educated, confident, excited person who's kind of heading off into the world on her own for the very first time. And so it was just, I feel so grateful to the writers for writing such an amazing arc for a character that I think could have just been tossed off as a very one-level character.
Daniel, one of the elements about Schitt's Creek is obviously we see this incredibly self-indulged and wealthy family lose everything except this crappy motel that they bought as a lark and rebuild their lives. But as viewers, there were so many elements to this that I know for me, and I know for many, many people, and I know you know this, touched them so deeply. The relationship between David and Patrick, the relationship between the family, the aspirations. I wanted to get an idea from you, now that it's all said and done, and I am going to ask you, as I have before, if there's any chance we're ever going to see more Schitt's Creek, but I wanted to know, how did that resonate with you? I know you've talked about you kind of were in a bubble with the writers, but you weren't immune to it, I know.
It's been the great unexpected sort of takeaway of this show, I think, for all of us, really. I mean, not to speak on people's behalf, but I do feel like we went in, we go into a show hoping for the best. You hope you have a good time. You hope that you can write funny things and you can tell substantial stories, but you never go into that kind of experience thinking, oh, I'll change the way people think in their homes, or I'll change people's relationships. That's kind of, so at least for me, that's not really where my head goes in terms of like, you know, big impact kind of thinking. So it really has been the unexpected gift that really gave back to us in so many ways, because I think, you know, all we really wanted to do was put out a show about people who were trying to improve themselves. And I think in a way, the fact that the stories we were telling ended up overlapping with a huge political shift in America that brought a very dark cloud to many people, to provide joy and to provide stories that were hopeful about people changing for the better. I just think that we happened to slide into people's lives in a time when they needed that kind of boost. And as a result, the connection between the show and the viewers became that much more intensified because of the circumstance that we're all kind of living in. So, you know, I will, Dad.
Not all phones were turned off.
It had to happen at some point. It had to happen.
That was literally an unwritten scene from an unseen episode of Schitt's Creek.
Thank God I wasn't crying about it.
Exactly.
But, you know, it's been incredible to meet people, to read all the you know, the personal things that people have shared with us, the way that the show has touched them. You know, you can't expect it, but it's been so rewarding to know that we did something that we were proud of, but also that we did something that affected some kind of positive change. So that's all you can really hope for.
Now, I know you guys are all up in Canada. I hope you're all safe and well. Really, really appreciate you guys spending some time with me today to talk about this. Eugene, I have to ask you, you know, you worked with your son on this. You worked with your son and your daughter creating it. You worked with one of your oldest collaborators. Annie joined the family literally and figuratively. What has this experience been like for you when you look at the length of your career so far?
It is the absolute best experience working that I have ever had. And not only the best experience working as a product, it's the best show I've ever been involved with. I'm very proud of this show. It's a great show, and the idea that, you know, that for 6 years we were able to put together a group of people that we absolutely adored working with, and the fact that the product that was, you know, produced turned out in such a way that you know, I couldn't be more proud of it. So it was a lovely diamond to happen to me at this point in my life.
Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Eugene Levy, Daniel Levy, Catherine O'Hara, Annie Murphy from Schitt's Creek. Much success at the Emmys. We're really proud of you guys and so glad you're here. And thank you for joining us. And we'll be back with some more Contenders TV